All right, it is 8:19 live look downtown Grand Rapids. There you go. You can barely see the roads, but I can tell you what, they looked very, very busy this morning as folks were headed out, and it is certainly about to get a lot busier come Monday, as Grand Rapids Public Schools is just the first district in West Michigan, or one of them, to go back to school. That means more buses on the roads, more kids walking and biking to school, and more traffic during those morning and afternoon rush hours. And with the first day of school in Grand Rapids on Monday, Michigan State Police reminding drivers to slow down and stay alert. Joining us this morning, Lieutenant Michelle Robinson with the Michigan State Police. Thank you so much for being here. Good to see you.
Good seeing you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, let's talk about safety concerns. What are the biggest things you guys are concerned safety-wise as people get back out on the roads? We were just talking in the break that people are in that first day of school rush.
Right. It is the first day of school, and normally any adults or parents, caregivers that are used to their normal routine, if they're out, if they're working people, they know what their routine is.
Right.
So now, not only is it a new routine for the kiddos, but it's also a new routine for those that have to adjust their work schedules.
Yeah.
And so what we always recommend is to plan ahead. As troopers, when we make a lot of traffic stops for people that are speeding, a lot of times people are like, well, I was running late. And so prior planning and planning out what the day is going to look like ahead of time will then reduce that rush that you have to get there and get the kids to school and still get to work on time. You have it all planned out, and that if there is any disruption, give yourself a little extra time so that you don't run into that aspect where you're trying to rush.
Yeah, I was going to say time is of the essence, but you can take a little more time in the morning, just plan ahead if you need to.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned speeding too, where people might be going through some areas thinking the speed limit's one thing, but now we have school zones back in effect. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about the school zones, the reduced speed through those areas?
Absolutely. And in twofold, we'll talk about bus safety as well as those school zones. We know that there is reduced speeds in those school zones. Many schools have the lights that are flashing in those zones. It is incredibly important that drivers slow down in those areas because kiddos are so excited to go back to school, and they want to, a lot of times they're not paying attention to the normal routine, the normal rules of don't dart between cars, don't run out into the street. They want to get into their first day, they're excited. And that's where us as motorists need to be extra vigilant on those roadways and those school zones to make sure that we're watching for the little ones that are there.
Yeah, let's talk about buses, because obviously, sometimes we get those people that when that school bus stop arm is extended, we always hear about it every year, every school year. Doesn't matter where you are, we hear about it all the time, where people just blow right past those school bus stop arms. And of course, we never want to report on a tragic situation that could involve. And I know you don't want to roll up as a state trooper on something like that as well. Can you kind of explain what the rules are behind the stop arm?
Just as similar to a yellow light on a traffic signal. Oftentimes people pull up to those yellow lights and they think they can step on it to get through before it turns red. Yellow means start using caution, slow down, especially when it is a stop arm on a school bus or the yellow lights on a school bus. If you see those yellow lights turn on, that isn't let's try and get past that school bus as quick as we can because we don't want to be delayed, but it's slow down. When you see the lights come on, stop the school bus at least 20 feet from that bus. And that will, and it doesn't matter if it's a 2-lane highway, stop for those school buses to protect the children.
Yeah, I was going to say, you never know when kids are across the street waiting for the bus driver's signal to come across the street and board the bus. You never know where those kids are going to end up. So it's just best to stay with where the school bus stop arm is.
Absolutely. Can you walk us through what the penalties are of passing a school bus?
Well, the penalties, it's per Michigan law, you could be facing a civil infraction to a misdemeanor. If you do cause injury, let's say the worst case scenario that you do strike a child or a school bus, then you could be facing felony charges. Yeah. Oftentimes, and I want to talk a little bit about distracted driving as well, because it isn't necessarily that someone is looking on their phones. When we begin the school year, we have so much on our minds because now we have the added responsibility of getting our children to the schools. And so even if we don't have a cellular device in our hand, our minds are distracted. We're thinking about all the things that we have to do. We have to get to the sporting events. We have to have dinner. We have to have lunch made for. There's so many things that the prior planning reduces that. So our brains are already distracted. And so we need to slow ourselves down, slow our thinking down, and really focus on the road, because we never know when something is going to come out in front of us. The stoplights come on for a school bus. If we aren't focused on that, that's when we have our rear end collisions, and we certainly don't want any children to be injured this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Fingers crossed that doesn't ever happen, but it's always a good reminder to provide that. I want to also ask you, because we were talking about, kids on the bus. We've talked about everyone around the bus. What about on the bus? How should we handle ourselves when we're on a school bus?
Well, this is a good time for parents over the weekend to talk to our children about a couple different things. When you're on the school bus, be respectful of the driver. They have a tremendous responsibility to get the children to the school safely. Also, we want to talk to them, and we don't want to scare them about going into school, but we want to talk to them about the stranger danger.
Yeah.
Even teenagers. We want them to know that when you go to school, if you see something that just seems strange to you, please say something. We have the OK to Say tip line that provides anonymous phone calls that you can call in. But always, we want to, as parents, encourage your children that if you see something strange or odd, or someone is not treating another person respectfully, go to the principal or a teacher and let them know. Have that courage to go forward and let them know what's going on.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So talking to teen students as well, let's talk about teen drivers. Maybe a lot of people that are getting out on the road for the first time, bringing themselves to school for the first time. Very exciting, really exciting stuff, of course. But what should parents communicate to their teen drivers before heading out in these new traffic patterns now?
The extra occupants in a vehicle.
Yeah.
If you have a teenager, they're excited to go to football games, they're excited to go to school events. If they have passengers in their vehicle, they have a tremendous, once again, responsibility for those persons that are in that car with them. And so they may not be used to seeing the little kids or knowing the traffic things. Talk about it over the weekend. How are you going to get to school? What happens if a bus is, you get into a bus lane? How do you get yourself out of those circumstances? And so just having those open conversations with your teens, especially don't ever fall to, the peer pressure of, well, let's go out and we'll party on a Friday night. Don't ever get behind the wheel of a vehicle. We've seen so many tragedies of individuals that have participated in, school parties, any kind of alcohol, and we don't want to lose another young life because of irresponsibility or given into those types of pressures that are in our society.
Yeah, so let's talk about walkers, because I know there are going to be a slew of walkers, especially in some of the more city areas, right? We've got walkers, we've got bikers, but we also have some folks that might ride an electric scooter to work, or school, I should say, as well. So for those that are maybe walking, biking, or riding the scooter to school, what would you say to them to stay safe, or what would you say to the drivers as well that might be around them?
A lot of it comes down to, for motorists, patience.
Yeah.
And once again, it comes into that scheduling of, I'm running behind, I have to hurry. Prior planning is amazing to help you get to your location in plenty of time. But those that are on any kind of, whether they're walking or on a bicycle or on a scooter, have lights on those vehicles so that we can see you, or motorists can see you. If you have children that are walking, couple things. Have some kind of reflective material on them, on their backpacks. Be careful not to, if you have a child that's going to be bringing in a great big backpack to school, maybe that's the day, instead of them walking, drive them into school so that they're not carrying that extra weight as they're coming into school. Having those reflective things on them. Motorists, you know that school's starting, and so you need to slow things down, watch for those little ones, and just have a safe route, have a plan in place. The other thing is, when first day of school, people love to take pictures of their children, put it on social media. And we ask you to be very, very cautious about that, because if you put up there that, this is my child, this is their name, and this is the school they're going to, that opens it up for predators to go to that school and say, hey, Susie, your mom wanted me to come pick you up. So you don't ever want to say, Susie's coming home, but I won't be there. You never want to put that much information on social media.
Yeah, like kind of what we're seeing right now.
Yeah.
Those we've all seen them on social media with the name. I'm going into 6th grade and this is my teacher. Insert whatever scenario here. It's very interesting to keep that in mind, and it's also shocking that people pay attention that closely to where predators could get some information that you don't want out there.
Right. It is. I mean, you don't. It's a balancing act.
Right.
You don't want to instill fear into children, but you want them to be aware of their surroundings. If somebody pulls up to them and says, hey, your mom told me to come pick you up, what I taught my children was, what's the magic word? And so we had a set word that if anybody were to approach my children, they need to know what's that word.
What's the code word, basically?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if the person that pulls up doesn't have that code word, then the child needs to run away. And also teach them, it's kind of a fun thing to do for us in policing. If we have a suspect type vehicle that tries to do something like that, one of the things we need to know is what type of vehicle it is and possibly a plate number. Teach your children kind of a fun game of what the different symbols are on cars. So that helps them, if it's a bow tie, it's a Chevy. So teach them those fun game type things of, well, what car is this? That way they can then identify what brand that vehicle is, and that helps us in law enforcement to be able to come up with a suspect vehicle.
That's so interesting. What did it have an oval? Did it have a bow tie? Ford versus Chevy, or any of that. That's such an interesting way. Was it a car? Was it a truck? I mean, because they know those generic things, right? Just being able to maybe associate some of those interesting vehicle features that might help you guys in an investigation.
Yeah, absolutely. Stranger danger, incredibly important to communicate to everybody's kids, to make sure everybody's prepared heading back to school. Now, I know a lot of parents out there are very, very excited. It's an exciting time sending their kids back to school. If they're hoping to make one of those social media posts, what would you say are some of the details that they would want to avoid putting out there? And what would you say are some that might be okay to share?
If you take a photo of your child on your, if you're going to take it like in your home, or outside your home, don't have your house numbers in there. Have it kind of a generic background so that it can't be easily identifiable. And don't ever say what school you're going to. You can put pictures of your children going back to school and how proud you are of them. But I wouldn't say, it's the such and such Mustangs or whatever the mascot is, because that's something that if you, on your profiles, you have that information where you live, then anybody that's a predator can look at your profile if it isn't just set to your family and friends. And I'm kind of referring more towards Facebook,
right?
Where you need to be very cautious, because it's real easy to figure out where you are, where you're from, where your child is going to school. And so just be very, very cautious of, still celebrate, but keep them safe as well.
But do it safely. I think I know we've got the okay to say tip line there. Can you talk about that and the importance of that really quick, just in case there's children watching that might be able to utilize that one day in case of a interesting scenario they might encounter?
Absolutely. The OK to Say program is an anonymous tip line that students can call in and give information. And without looking up the statistics, it's been incredibly successful in our school system, where if a child is afraid to or intimidated to go to a principal or a guidance counselor or one of their teachers and say, hey, I heard this, they have this feeling of, I don't want to tell on somebody. You're not telling on anyone, you're keeping the rest of your students safe.
Yeah.
And so even if you go, well, maybe somebody else has already done that, or it might not be that important, we would sooner have something called in and find it to be not a credible threat than to have it not be reported and have it be a credible threat.
Yeah, the other thing that kind of goes hand in hand with that is if you see something, say something, right? Can you talk about the importance of speaking up when you feel something isn't right?
Right. We all have those intuitions.
Yeah.
Even as adults, if we are out in society and maybe let's say we're in the mall or walking down the street and we just have that feeling that something's not right, listen to that. Same thing with children. It's never too young to let them know, hey, if something makes you feel uncomfortable, we're talking with the little ones, let me know that. Let your teacher know that something or someone has made you feel uncomfortable. And if it gives them the empowerment of telling someone something, and that, what I like to tell them is, I need a lot of junior troopers out there.
Yeah.
Will you help me be a trooper and tell me if you see something? And the little ones just love that. And so same thing as a parent or a guardian. Let them know, hey, you are empowered and we want you to speak up and let us know if there's something that doesn't feel safe out there.
Yeah, that all makes sense. Any last thoughts before kids head back, or at least start heading back to school? GRPS, one of the largest districts in the state, back on Monday.
Yeah. First and foremost, have a fantastic year for all the little ones out there. I want you, have a great time, enjoy your school year, make new friends, be yourself, learn something new every day, and just be safe. Motorists, please, please, please. Be attentive to the roadways, be attentive to the little ones that are out there so that we all can have a very happy and safe school year.
Absolutely, Lieutenant Michelle Robinson. We always appreciate you coming in. It's good to see you.
You as well.
All right, we'll talk soon. How about that?
Sounds great.
All right.